Hey folks, this is Bailey from Dank Wargaming,
Hey, this is Heath with Team Table War Hawaii.
and welcome to the Path to Redemption, the Warhammer 40,000 Dark Angels podcast, where we aim to provide Dark Angels players with the tactical and hobby skills they need to enjoy this wonderful hobby of ours. Now, on today's episode, we are going to be going over some highly anticipated releases for the Dark Angels. We're going to look at a team-specific list build for a team event that's come out of Australia, as well as go over some of my results from my recent tournament in MetaWatch. Then in this month's featured segment, we're going to go over Greenwing strategy and look at a list that Heath put together demonstrating some of the key elements of this strategy. And then finally, we're going to go over a few comments from our community in our first full-bodied community interaction segment. Pretty exciting. You ready, Heath?
Oh, yeah. Yep, let's do it.
All right, so this month, the big release that everyone was excited about, maybe not for the release itself, but what was inside, is that we have Kill Team Pariah Nexus. It came out at $160. I put my money in, and I picked up my Heavy Intercessors. So I got mine right here.
I did too. I haven't put it together yet. I was finishing up on my challenge, which was for stuff I had previously purchased, not purchased yet.
I forgot. I forgot that was in the segment too. We have our monthly challenge in there too. But you can see here's a regular Intercessor next to him. And then this is an aggressor that I've also been working on. So we're all in these various stages of working. So aggressors, I think, are, even though the aggressor just sort of looks bulkier, and there's definitely a different style helmet. So if you were trying to, go pick up some cheap aggressors and then try and convert them into heavy intercessors, there's definitely a design difference. And the aggressors definitely look bulkier based on all the extra equipment that they have on. So that's just as a quick visual, I'll tell you that I can see that. You can get the Indominus push fits now for $140. So that's some of the extra characters, the Eradicators, things like that. And then we also saw that there were some Kill Team terrain and board sets that were coming out at $100 a piece. So if you wanted to, have stuff to help make your Dark Angels experience better, sometimes you got to bring your own terrain. So those look like some interesting places to get started on that. And from what I understand, you can buy a couple of those Kill Team boxes, put the boards together, and they'll actually make a regulation size board for bigger games.
Yeah, that's true. So the Kill Team board is 22 by 30 inches, and a incursion size, so 1,000-point 40K game, is 44 by 30 inches. So the idea is you can put two Kill Team boards together, and you've got all the stuff you need for a 1,000-point 40K game. So that being said, there's a lot of good stuff in those Kill Team boxes, especially if you're trying to build out your personal terrain collection, which is something that I have been working on. As far as the Pariah Nexus, though, if you are just interested to get your hands on the Heavy Intercessors, I would recommend staying away from this purchase. The word on the street is those Heavy Intercessors are coming out in their own box in just a few weeks, and
May
the
is
rest
what
of the.
I saw. This week on Warhammer Community, they said May.
Okay. Well, so here's the thing. The rest of that box is Necrons, not many of them, like one Necron character and some 5 ones, and then it's a lot of Necron-themed Kill Team terrain. So what I did was I split a box with a buddy who's a Necron player. And at that point, like, hey, $80 for 5 Intercessors, a Gravis Captain, the with a heavy bolt rifle, who I'm.
Oh yeah.
I'm probably I'm probably gonna use him as an Intercessor Sergeant because my Dark Angels, sensibilities require all the sergeants to have robes. But yeah, so if you're not looking to split it with somebody, I would just hold off. If you can split with somebody, that's great, but don't expect to be able to offload those Necrons for $80 on eBay. I anticipate the market's going to be saturated with box breakers. Just public service announcement. If you're trying to stretch your hobby dollar, this isn't the place to try and do it.
No, right, and I could agree with that. But as someone who was working on their own personal terrain collection, there's some interesting things you can do with the Necron terrain in that box.
Yeah, it's a lot of scatter terrain, like little low walls. Yeah. It's super great for Kill Team. Kill Team, all that stuff does stuff. It impacts you count as obscured, so you'll get the penalties to wound rolls when you're within 2 inches of it. It's great for Kill Team. It's not as relevant for 40K, in my opinion. So
Right. Well, the way I'm looking at it, I got to like stack them or put them together to make little walls, and even those doors, I realized it looks like you
Okay.
could potentially line them up and glue them together and make like a pretty decent Necron themed like
Okay.
barricade wall.
Okay.
So there's actually, if you're really creative, there's some interesting opportunity there. But yes, wait until May. Although remember they told us wait until January, and we got our book in February. So. Uh,
Sure. No,
if you snipe the deal on eBay, take it or find a buddy, Necron buddy. I had a buddy, but being the treacherous Xenos filth that he is, he didn't buy his box, and so now I'm sitting on some Necrons. So if anybody out there plays Necrons and wants some played ones in the Chronomancer, hit me up in the comments below.
Fair enough.
All right, so in MetaWatch, there was it came out a couple weeks ago, but it was in March, so it was after our February episode. On Frontline Gaming, they had an Art of War episode, and the way Art of War works is that they have an episode that's free, and then they have an episode that is, for their Patreon subscribers and things like that. So they had their free episode, and they were talking about Dark Angels again. And can you help me out, Heath? This guy's last name, it is unpronounceable to me.
Gentleman from the land of Oz, Mr. Adam Camilleri.
We've talked about some of his lists before, and this one was interesting because this is one that he's built specifically for a team tournament. And when you listen to this, and we'll have the link in the description, so the rest of you can all go listen to it if you want to. He talks about that because it's a team list, it's built with very certain things in mind. It's very competitive. He did point that out. And it's built knowing that in the sort of ATC style or ETC or the World Team Championship style of where you don't, there's a way to pair your lists where you're not just always playing someone with the same record, is that your team's working to get you into a matchup where you can avoid things that might have a hard counter to you. Although, listening to the podcast, he feels, and I would agree, that this list really doesn't have a hard counter because it's built on 20 Assault Intercessors with Inner Circle.
And then also a bunch of Deathwing command squads, and it's pretty filthy. Yeah, it's tough. The idea behind this is he's just trying to make the game as non-interactive as possible. It's like, look, I've got access to an objective to a secondary objective where I can sit on my own objective, and as long as you don't kill me, I'm gonna score points. And hey, man, if you're trying to kill 10 Deathwing Terminators with storm shields, like, hey, spend your money. Spend your money. Best of luck. And while at the same time the rest of this army is killing you back, and he's got a bunch of apothecaries in there, so he's got a lot of feel no pain bubbles. He's bringing them back. It's don't show up at your friendly local game store with a list like this. You are not going to make any friends. It's well tuned. That's once again, that doesn't mean that it is a point and click like this is the best list in the world. Like, it requires very careful management of your aura placement in order to make things work, and knowing when to sit and when to push and when to combat squad your stuff to provide yourself a better presence. I think there's a lot of complexity in this list, and once again, but the team tournament format really lets you kind of select your matchups, and you end up seeing some edge case stuff that you don't normally usually see in singles play because balanced lists are the way to go for singles play. So
now the thing that I did see there that I thought was awesome that I hadn't thought of that I think I'd like to try is he put Brilliant Strategist on his Talon Master and then gave him the relic, the Arbiter's Gaze. So that way the Talon Master can keep himself in Devastator Doctrine, so that way he can always advance and have those extra 3 inches for being in Dev Doctrine, for being a Ravenwing unit, advance and get an invuln, and then advance and still be able to shoot his heavy weapons. But then the Arbiter's Gaze makes it to where he always hits on a 2, even in Overwatch. Yep. And so you can ignore that -1 to hit when you advance from the Devastator Doctrine rules. So you have this crazy guy moving around, getting his 4-up invuln, shooting things like crazy.
Yeah,
heavy weapons, you get the AP too.
That's true. Yeah, I was thinking about this a little while ago. The tack I was going to take on it was because I'm a huge fan of Azrael as like the anchor for a infantry line. With his 4-up invul save, I was like, okay, well, sure. How about Azrael uses Brilliant Strategist on the Talon Master? And then also he uses his chapter command ability on the Talon Master. So now the Talon Master is in Dev Doctrine, and with Arbiter's Gaze, so all that interaction he's talked about. Plus now he's re-rolling all his hits. and that is legal because the Talon Master is a character, and the Chapter Master ability works on characters. It does kind of tie you to be near, within 6 inches of Azrael, but if you could, I could design a list that's that's the thing that I'm going to do. So the one other thing I think that's beneficial that makes me want to do that is because I know I want to take Azrael, but because he does a lot of great stuff on his data sheet, but also he gives you +2 command points back if he's your warlord. So if you say, hey, I'm going to make him a warlord, I'm going to get command points, and now Brilliant Strategist. I don't think, and we'll talk about this a little more in the Greenwing section, I don't think that Brilliant Strategist or keeping your Greenwing infantry in the Devastator Doctrine is necessarily the right call, but a Talon Master of Argus Gaze is the perfect opportunity for that. So if this lieutenant is sitting in the back and providing one lieutenant buff to your block of Hellblasters or whatever, and he's sitting in Dev Doctrine, so he's got more AP, and he's hitting on 2s, and he's got that 4 pitfall save. There's a lot to be said there. So it's definitely good. And Adam runs, I think, 2 Talon Masters in this list. One of them clearly is a little more spicy than the other one, but. So listen, I highly recommend go listen to all the stuff that he does. Him and John Lennon did another episode on Our War Down Under, which is Adam's personal podcast, which is 2 free episodes to talk about the Dark Angels, and they have another one behind their paywall. All really good stuff. So
excellent. Yeah, I'd highly recommend it, and they're fun to listen to as well.
Yeah, Adam talks a lot, and he talks a mile a minute, and the Australian accent is great. I love Australians. I've been there a couple of times. It's a great place.
Oh yeah,
yeah, they're fun people.
It's somewhere I'd like to be someday.
Yep. If you ever get a chance to go to Sydney, it's awesome. Sydney's a great place.
Yep, and I can try and find wherever that dentist office from Finding Nemo, right? Whatever Wallaby Run or whatever.
I think that was in Perth. I've been there. My submarine pulled in there once. Perth is also a nice town. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
All right, so from the super spicy to the not so spicy, that we had our tournament list preview. Recently we posted it, and we went over my list and talked about deployment and things. And funny enough, all the things I was afraid of running into, I saw none of. I mean, there were Space Marine players there. That was the only thing I got right on the meta. There were some other Space Marine players, but I didn't play any of them. And there weren't any Death Guard players. And there was one Custodes player, but it wasn't the guy that said he was going to play Custodes. Actually, I played that guy, Aaron. I actually challenged him because we didn't use BCP because the TO doesn't have an iPhone. He has Android, and so there's just something going on with BCP and Android right now because I couldn't do it. I had the same issue when I ran an event a while back, or at least in the last 2 or 3 months. And so we just sort of were using a spreadsheet. So I was like, hey, can we do round 1 challenge? Because I've talked to this guy about Warhammer all the time. I've never played him. Let's play. So ended up playing him. He ended up going to the top table in round 3. He lost pretty narrowly. So he was a good player, good list. He was running Guard and AdMech. So instead of running Custodes, he ran AdMech. I ended up losing this game 87-49. Remember I talked about my strategy of running Line Breaker and deploy Scramblers? I did not do that the entire time.
That sounds tough against a list with as many bodies as AdMech and Guard are going to have. Yeah.
Well, I will say the one thing that was nice is we actually went 5 turns, and I still had models on the board. His second round, he tabled the guy in 3 turns.
Oh wow, yeah, AdMech can do that.
So I did all right.
Yeah, AdMech can do that. I don't have a lot of personal experience with AdMech because I don't think we have maybe 1 or 2 AdMech players in Hawaii, and I don't know if there's anyone who's a primary AdMech player, but it's just not an army I run into very often. I think I played him once in the last 4 years. So.
Yeah, it was in terms of secondaries. He actually took the deploy Scramblers and got him in on me because he had deep striking Scions that snuck in and dropped the last Scrambler in my deployment zone because he had 6 robots with Call giving them all sorts of rerolls and all sorts of stratagem support. So they rerolled everything. Like one robot could just annihilate an entire squad of whatever I had. Like I think he fired 1 or 2 into my Blade Guard and killed all the Blade Guard and didn't even need to roll the dice on the second robot. Like, it was just bad. He just ripped me apart. He had some Bolgren as well that kind of pressed up. I didn't really have to worry too much about them, though, because I just kind of played away from them. And then there was actually one turn where I kind of cut into his points. I managed to keep the primary score pretty close. I think he only had one turn of 15, and I had 5, and that's where the gap was, a 10-point gap in primary. And that was because I was able to use my bikes to go in and steal OBSEC, because they were OBSEC from the Outrider detachment right at the end. Because I was going second, I didn't have to go in and take it until the bottom of the turn, so I was able to pop out at the end and take some things that I wouldn't have been able to hold normally. And I was taking Assassinate and Engage on all fronts, in addition to deploy scramblers, and I got 2 scramblers drop, but I didn't get into his deployment zone. He had me pretty screened out with his multiple small units, and his, he had a bunch of characters, which is why I took Assassinate. And right at the end of the game, when he was pushing up the board, he left some gaps, and like Samael jumped out and sniped a character. My bikes went in and got like a little astropath. He left a little gap in his Bolgren, and I could charge around the Bolgren into the astropath, just dunked on him, and scored some points there. But so outside of that, in the secondaries, I lost 32-14 on secondaries, and that's where the big gap was.
Ooh, ow, that hurts. So you took Scramblers and Assassinate. What was the third one?
Engage on all fronts. And the Engage on all fronts, I actually scored 8 points on. But the problem with that secondary in this is that I had to come out. He got his robots into the middle of the board and put them in the multi-shot mode where they don't move.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of terrain on the board, and there were places to hide. And if it wasn't a place to hide, there was -1 to hit dense cover, just big chunks of it everywhere. But those robots just throw so many dice, it doesn't matter.
Much firepower. Yeah,
and
they are.
By having engaged in all, so all of that, getting engaged in all fronts, forcing myself to try and play into that, kind of played. I had to come out, and that played into his hands, but.
Yeah,
I drop an egg. I drop eggs on secondary, so to get 8 was a pretty big deal for me.
Yeah, no, I think that I'm starting to think that engage on all fronts might be tough for like as a Ravenwing player. Like, so I was a Drakari player competitively for a long time, and like what was it called, Recon? Well, back in the old was just my bread and butter. It's automatic. This I'm gonna max this. This is not even a concern. But with Space Marines, engage on all fronts is a lot harder to do because I don't always want to, my first turn, I don't want to hit it. I don't want to go hard on it. So, and aircraft don't count. So I've started thinking that maybe Line Breaker, I don't know. Like I said, I find myself every time I take an engage on all fronts having a hard time maxing it, or a really hard time maxing it, and even a hard time getting 10 to 11. So. I think I'm a little sour on that now, but all right. What's your next game?
Yeah, well, I took it in my second game, which I played this Necron player, and I didn't take Line Breaker in this one or deploy Scramblers because this guy brought like 80 warriors in this Highlander. Again, this is the Highlander tournament. We can only bring 1 of anything that's not a troop or dedicated transport. So when I saw 80 warriors, I was like, yeah, I'm not getting into anything. We're playing the deployment zone where you have like a table quarter with half a circle cut out, and then it was the objectives are in sort of the die, like a number 5 die where there's 1 in the middle and then 1 in each corner quadrant of the board. And the only thing I didn't like about this game is that we didn't finish the game, and I played kind of very defensively. Like I hit everything behind the L in my deployment zone to hide from his Doomsday Arc and all the warriors. And as the game progressed, I realized I really didn't need to do that. I got Ezreal's bonus, not Ezreal, Samael. Oh, I guess he can't give it to them. Oh, he still does reroll 1s. So no, I didn't even need that because I got to do the thing. I got Righteous Repugnation off on my 5 Blade Guard. Charged them into a squad of 20 warriors. I think there were 15 of them by the time I finally charged in him. He picked them all up. Found out that they don't do the reanimation roll if there's nothing left. So if you just wipe the whole squad, then they don't come back at all.
That's always been the way to fight Necrons. Always been the way to kill Necrons.
So that was brutal. With all the rerolls, 5 Blade Guard vets just ripped them apart. Because apparently they don't have a 3-up save. They only have a 4-up. So
4-up save,
all those power swords just ripped that squad apart. When I realized I had that kind of power, I was like, man, I've played way too defensively and suffered because we only got through 3 turns, and so my turn 1 I only got 5 points, then I got 10, and then he scored 10 and 15, and so that ended up being the gap was in primaries, because on secondaries it was fairly close, because I took While We Stand We Fight, and that was my Plasma Inceptors, my Blade Guard, and my Gladiator were my
Mm-hmm.
big units there, and he only managed to kill my Inceptors by that point, by the end of the game. Engaged in all fronts, I had 4 points at that point, and that's kind of where the Plasma Scepters died, because I needed them and the drop pod to go into a table quadrant and compete against it. Also because he had the Purge the Vermin secondary, where for every table quarter that I wasn't in, he scored points, so I had to, I wanted to reward myself for being in all 3 table quadrants, and then or as many
Yeah.
table quarters as I could, and then that also denied him points. So that
Yeah,
was
makes
good. And
sense.
then I took Raise the Banners, and I only ever really got a banner. I only got one banner up on the one in my deployment zone, but I just kind of was looking at his list, and I was like, I don't really want to go out in the open because I'm just going to get lit up by all the shots, and I was like, I kind of hurt myself because I took a little probably too much time trying to find secondaries that I could do that wasn't going to hurt me, for having to go out and run into the mess of shots. But once the game started and I started really getting into him, I found out that I didn't really need that. The other thing is quantum shielding is now just inner circle. Because I thought,
Yeah.
because I had all my melta weapons, I thought, oh man, I'm gonna roll all this crazy damage. He's just gonna roll under it and not take any damage. And he's like, oh no, you just can't wound me on anything better than a 4. I was like, oh really? And then the eradicators and everything came out. We're like, okay, we're just gonna shoot everything and kill it now.
Yeah.
But like I said, that game, I'm kind of disappointed that I lost it, 41-31, because once I managed to get to where the Doomsdayer couldn't see me, was going to have to move and work around his defensive L and his deployment zone, and I just thought the way I was killing warriors, and he just wasn't doing anything to me, and if he killed a Blade Guard, I just brought it back with my Apothecary, I was just going to start mopping up the board, and we got clocked, so that's just how it is sometimes.
Yep. Okay.
Round 3...
Yeah,
Sorry, but round 3 was I played a NIDS player, and he had read about, or at least seen, the John Lennon list, so he had that big Forge World dude in there and the heavy support slot.
the Demicharon,
Yeah,
Demicharon,
yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, that thing.
He beautifully painted, very scary. I duck dived and dodged that thing into a corner behind a line of sight blocking L, and it ate like one attack bike, and my drop pod and my impulsor, and that's it. Everything else, I just destroyed him. Like, it got to the point where we had an hour left in the round. He's like, "Hey, dude, we've been playing for 8 hours. You're gonna win. You just want to figure out the points and then go have a beer and eat dinner." And I was like, "Yes."
All right. Yep.
This one, the primary, he had 10 every turn, because this is the Dawn of War with 6 objectives, so he just always had 2. But I managed to get up into the middle of the board and snag a couple of the other ones. And I took, so I had 10, 15, 15, 10 by the end of the game. And then Raise the Banners, I managed to pull out 9 points on that. And then Linebreaker, he and I both took Linebreaker, and we're just like, yeah, it didn't happen. The fun part about that is that he brought a Trigon with a bunch of stuff in it, and I managed to have him blocked out of almost the entire board. Even his deployment zone. Like, I had 2 little squads of 1 bike left, and I just turbo boosted them in his deployment zone to make little bubbles, and he's like sitting there trying to map out doing his dice, and I'm like, that's nice, but you realize there's a bike right there. He's like, oh, I didn't even see that. And so I ended up his big death bomb that was supposed to come in and win him the game had to deploy back in his corner of his deployment zone behind line of sight blocking terrain, and
That's such a nice feeling. That's such a nice feeling.
Was
yeah.
a bike. A single bike was the only thing he could charge. Yeah. So that was good play there. I actually took the Dark Angels specialty one, where you pick something in the enemy army and you have to try and kill it with Deathwing and then stay alive. And this was probably my favorite part of this game, is he had a Swarm Lord in his list. It was his Warlord, and he took Psychic Ritual, because I guess that's just what's worked for him. Well, the only Psyker in his army was the Swarm Lord, so he moved his Swarm Lord into the middle of the board by itself into this building, in the line of sight blocking building, so he, I couldn't shoot, so he thought he was safe. Well, I asked him, like, as the game starts, like, is this a breachable building? He said, yeah, dude, it's a building, it's a room, whatever. I'm like, okay. Impulsor with Blade Guard deploy through the wall, Blade Guard charge the Swarm Lord that I've labeled as the dude I need to kill. And there were some pretty epic deny rolls, too, because I had my Librarian with him, and it was like, we had this thing where, like, does Shadows of the Warp effect deny the witch rolls? And I'm like, no,
nope,
it says it affects psychic test. So when I had, so he's like, well, you have a +1 from your Null Zone hood, right? I'm like, yeah, I do. Or my Psyker hood. I was like, yeah, I do. And he's like, well, does that negate that? I'm like, pretty sure it doesn't. So I was actually negating his big spells on with my psychic hood ability because like I'd tie him, but I got the +1, so it just wouldn't happen. And so then he found out he's like, oh, so I can only do psychic actions or cast spells. So he didn't get off his feel no pain. He didn't get off his all of his little things that he does and all the mortal wounds that he can spit out with psychic powers.
This is literally the same problem. Literally the same problem I ran into one of the last games I played. It's like, oh, taking Psychic Ritual, you've only got one character, you've only got one Psyker is a bad plan because you took that Psyker for a reason. So yeah.
And then he kind of got the feel bad when he managed to finally kill one of my Blade Guard and wound another one, and I just went, heal it, bring it back, soup him up, you fight last, you can't interrupt me. I actually was out of command points anyway, but I managed to get one Mind Worm off, and I just chewed through the big invuln that the Swarm Lord has with just all my swords, and because I think he kept denying Righteous Repugnation, or Righteous Repugnance, but because it got to the assault phase, I got rerolls against big things anyway, and that's what really finally did it in.
Yep.
So that game was pretty cool. I won that game 74-40, and that was the last game of the night. This little RTT actually it wasn't little; it was like over 20 people. Which
is real big for these days.
People show up. Yeah, and it was a pretty big deal. We also had some raffle prizes that were pretty cool. So like some people walked home with the new Blade Guard, the new Land Speeder, and someone got the Dark Angels Combat Patrol. That's sort of this guy's things he does, to get people to stay. It's like, yeah, maybe you're having a bad day, but you might go home. Like some guy last fall, I think one of the guys in the bottom tables in the fall got an Indominus box. Just he paid $15 to play in a tournament and walked away with an Indominus box, even though he
$200 Indominus box. Yeah, that's great. Hey man, price support's great. So yeah, all right, okay. So, well, I just want to touch base on a couple things about your list now that you've got some more competitive experience with it. So, how did you feel about your the selections you made for the powers on your librarian? Mind Worm, Aversion, and Righteous Repugnance.
So all of that ended up being pretty cool in the fight with the Swarm Lord, for sure. And in that one fight against the Necrons, Righteous Repugnance was awesome because it let me pick up a whole squad of warriors with just 5 dudes. When I started going over like what Mind Worm did and what Aversion did and all that, the Necron or the Tyranid player was like, oh no, we can't have any of this. Can't have any of this.
Don't want nothing to do with that. Yeah, don't want nothing to do with that.
So that was pretty good.
How'd the Assault Intercessors do for you?
They didn't do very much. They just kind of sat on objectives and did their thing, which was fine. They raised banners. They were good at that.
All right. Blade Guard veterans clearly always going to be the star of a show.
Yeah.
Your drop pods with the company vets, how'd that work out?
Well, in the first game, it was interesting because I was I didn't have the line breaker, so I couldn't do that. But my opponent, he committed what I felt was a decent, more points than what I had in my thing, trying to keep me out of his deployment zone, and it allowed me to kind of keep him from pushing up on certain objectives because he had to have his backline boxed out. And it also, by the end of the game, stretched him out to where I actually could go in and hit a few of his softer targets. Because I don't think he realized how fast I was, and that I could pop out from like Semiel jumping out from behind line of sight, blocking cover into the middle of the board, and charging into his string of guys because they didn't advance far enough to stay with the Bulgren and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Against the Necron player, it helped me deny, helped me get engaged on all fronts and deny his Purge the Vermin because I could just drop this thing that had to be killed, and then these 2 little guys that had to be killed, and I was able to kind of force an issue on an objective, and I pulled they were aggroing a Doomsday Arc, not Tesla, but the Heavy Gauss Blaster, Immortals, and then a squad of warriors and a Chronomancer. Like that's what went to go kill 3 Plasma Inceptors, a drop pod, and 2 company vets, instead of trying to move up and kill the important parts of my army. So I felt like that was kind of
okay. That's yeah. No, I like that. Okay, so yeah, even if they're not like directly contributing to you, they're providing, especially if you do engage in all fronts, and he's got that other one, the something about vermin, whatever. There's units, I don't care. It's it gives you something like he can't ignore that, right? And because it's directly gonna make him score points and cost you points, and if it takes pressure off your alpha units, which you're relying on. And big units of warriors with Plasma Inceptors, that sounds like a great time to me. Like, ooh. So.
Yeah, and then again, the final game, I used the drop pod. I just like dropped all, big star, take up space, so he couldn't deep strike his Trigon in because I was going first. So I was like, yeah, this is gonna come in, spread out all the way. You don't get to come anywhere near this, and then that kind of helped it. It was the sacrifice to the Forge World unit, so that way the big thing couldn't get into the company vets who are raising a banner and securing an objective at the same time.
Yeah.
He had
Okay.
to mess
Okay.
around with that. So.
How'd your Gladiator do? The Valiant.
It got popped before I ever got to use it in the first game because the guy brought a mana core with a max payload and just dumped on it.
Yeah, that'll happen.
Actually, was that what it was, or was it the robots? It might have been the robots. I thought I'd hidden it. I just hadn't hidden it well enough. And I think, he dumped everything. I think it was robots and a mana core. I think it all kind of went in. Yeah, he had to dump everything into it turn one, and he really didn't want to do it. But he's like, I have to because it's still there, and you can heal it back up and do stuff with it.
Yep.
So he had to dunk on that. The Necron game, because I didn't realize how quantum shielding worked now, I really mispositioned it, and then there was like a line of sight blocking piece of terrain that I didn't. It's one of those things where like it is and it isn't. Like you look at it and you're like, well, it's not like the actual like the big L because it was like a building. But like as the game went on and we were like checking some things later, I was like, oh wait, this building actually is more than 6 inches tall or 5 inches tall, and it is a ruin. So technically, it is obscuring. So I could have brought my tank out here, not got shot by the Doomsday Arc, and I would have been fine. Oh well, I kind of misplayed that. My bad. But then the game against the Tyrannid player, because he was playing a lot of warrior spam, it just did. It was death. It walked out into it started just marching up the board, blowing everything up, killed warriors, shot up an exocrine, it dominated the middle of the board. So that was pretty cool. It had its moment in that game 3.
All right. Okay. So yeah, I mean, okay. So what was your big, hey, this is the thing I learned, and here's what I'm going to change about not necessarily the list, but like the tactics, since this is, I think, the first tournament you say you've had with the new codex.
In terms of tactics, I would argue that, again, it's just getting used to playing an elite army again because I spent so much time playing Horde Nids through most of 8th edition that understanding that there's certain things that I just can't throw away. And, the other issue is that I need to, we're talking about command points with Ezreal, that command point economy is just vicious with Dark Angels. I think that list we were talking about earlier in the segment, Adam said that he started with only 5 command points.
Yeah.
So he played through a huge tournament, or he's planning on going through a huge tournament with 5 command points to start every game. So that there were just some moments where I was like, man, I really wish I had some, and I don't. And so I was kind of happy that I didn't take the extra relics because I didn't feel like I really needed extra relics on anything. I just taken Honor Vehement, which actually turned out to be okay because, when people are like, well, you don't have Shock Assault, I'm like, yeah, well, because I had that prolonged combat with the Swarm Lord because it went a couple turns. And so I'm like, well, yeah, I don't have Shock Assault, but I brought my Apothecary over here to heal guys, and he also gives them their Shock Assault bonus back. And the guy's eyes kind of was like, oh, no. And I'm like, yeah, that's how it is. So that actually worked out all right.
Okay. All right. So, well, hey, best of luck next time. I mean, every time, every day is a learning opportunity. So,
yeah. Well, as my grandma has always told me whenever she used to drive me up when I was little to the game store near us, because it was in the town just up the road, she said, if you win every time, no one wants to play you. It's like if you want to have people to play with, sometimes you got to lose so that they want to come back and play. And sneakily, I've never won a game of Warhammer that I had to teach the other person how to play. I'm like, and however many people I've played in Warhammer, and funny enough, they all end up buying armies after that, and then it's like, all right, gloves are off, time to go.
Yeah, remember, success teaches nothing, only failure teaches.
Yeah.
So, all right. Hey, you want to move? You want to move on to our?
Yeah. What do you got to teach us about the Greenwing today, or what can we teach the listeners about the Greenwing today?
So so Bailey and I discussed this last couple weeks or last week or so, like what we're talking, and I think so. The Deathwing and the Ravewing gets so much attention, especially the Deathwing, because of how powerful the rules are, how powerful Inner Circle is, how powerful Jink is. So as well, I really think that there's a lot of stuff that you could do with just the rest of the chapter, with the 3rd through the 10th companies. And what we wanted to do is try and focus on what it would look like if you didn't use Deathwing or Ravewing, or at least to the minimum standard possible. Right. So I put a list together and I started playing it. I got a turn and a half through a game on Tabletop Simulator before the rain apocalypse we had this week in Hawaii just broke my internet connection, and we haven't been able to reconvene. So I have a little bit to report, but not much. So more on that later. But so I think I'll go ahead and I'll post the list up in the screen when we edit this. But just to kind of discuss it for if you're listening, I have a single battalion. And in this battalion, the HQs are Azrael, Ezekiel, and a Primaris Chaplain on a bike. Like, no Deathwing, Heath. Well, okay, yeah. But I think if you're... I think if you want to play Greenwing, I think Azrael is really important because, one, he gets you those command points, and two, he gives you that durability against range shooting that is going to be a hallmark of the Dark Angels gun line. So... I gave him Brilliant Strategist as he's the Warlord. He's got Brilliant Strategist because that gets me some CP back, which is super important for our command point economy, especially as much as I'm budgeting to use Weapons of the Dark Age in this list. So, and then Ezekiel, I think I gave him Righteous Repugnance, Engulfing Fear, and Mind Worm because I want to be able to make you fight last. And then the Primaris Chaplain, this is where I start to kind of deviate from, I think, what the normal stuff is here. So I gave him Exhortation of Rage and the Canticle of Hate. And he's clearly the Master of Sanctity because why the hell wouldn't he be? And then I also used Paragon of the Chapter to give him Fury of the Lion. So Fury of the Lion is the Dark Angel's Warlord trait that when the Warlord charges his charge or performs a heroic intervention, gives everyone within his aura range +1 strength. So, if you combine that with Exhortation of Rage, now you're wounding Space Marines on 2s. Yeah. So the other thing I did here is I gave him my only relic my free relic is the Vox Espiritum, which is a Greenwing book. So it's a regular Space Marine Codex. It's a Primaris model only and extends the range of your auras by 3 inches. So my Canticle is now 9 inches. My Exhortation of Rage is a command phase ability, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I'll pull it up here.
And my Fury of the Lion is 9 inches. And also, remember, one of the things I used more than almost anything else was I didn't actually use Canticle of Hate. I used Litany of Hate. So Litany of Hate is also an aura. So my concern is what you'll see when I get to my troops is that this is a close combat army. That was the other challenge I wanted to provide for myself was I want to make a close combat Dark Angels army that doesn't use Deathwing. So, and I'll come back to the rest of the theory about the Chaplain. This is why I've got a big fatty squad of 9 Assault Intercessors.
Oh, yeah.
So, 9 Assault Intercessors, and the Sergeant is marked for command and has a Heavenfall Blade.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, so here's the thing. They can fight twice with Honor the Chapter, which is only 2 CP now. And when you give them Righteous Repugnance, so they're rerolling all hits and rerolling all wounds, and they're hitting on 3s, rerolling hits, and they're wounding on 3s because they're under the effect of Fury of the Lion, and maybe they're wounded on 2s, they put out some work. A squad
and that is
of...
You pick a unit in your command phase when you make the prayer, so you're right about that.
Yep, and so... Yeah, so I rolled this out, and... it's something like, I think it's like 35 dice, and then the Sergeant has the Heavenfall Blade, which is +2 strength, -3 AP, 2 flat damage, and then hitting on 3s, reroll everything, and then depending on how hard your target is, what you want to do here. And there's another cool interaction with Righteous Repugnance, is Gene Rot Might. So for 1 CP. You can make it so that when they roll a 6 to hit, they automatically wound. So now if you're rolling into something that's big, that's going to be higher than their strength, then instead of wounding on 5s, then you're just auto-wounding. So this is also a bit of redundancy I built into the list because I've got 3 ways to reroll all hits. So 1, Righteous Repugnance, 2, the Litany of Hate, 3, Azrael.
Well, and the other thing I want to point out is also interesting is that you also get that extra attack from Ezekiel once you're out of your Shock Assault ability. I believe it's the Book of Salvation. So you have basically a free Honor Vehement, and then he costs 125, so it's really close to just a regular Primaris Chaplain.
It's basically the same.
Yeah,
we're the Primaris Librarian. Yeah, it's basically the same cost as a Primaris Librarian, who's the Master of Librarius. So,
but you also don't have to spend command points to give him the Warlord trait to give him the +1 cast that Ezekiel already has. So basically, he's saving you 2 command points just by existing.
Yes,
which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the economy and the efficiency you get out of Ezekiel is amazing, and because you don't have to spend the CP to give him the Warlord trait to get the +1 to cast and the extra knowledge. It's great. It's great, and he's a great buffing unit as well, and he has his own invul save. So.
Oh yeah, right, which the regular guy doesn't have.
Which he doesn't. So the Assault Intercessors were one of the things I really kind of built this list around. Was these Assault Intercessors are going to hit you, and by God, you're going to know that you've been knocked.
Oh yeah.
They are. It is. And I'll talk about how the deployment in the first phase of this game went after I finished over the list. So anyway, big fatty squad of Assault Intercessors. All right, so the next unit I had was Heavy Intercessors. So I got a big fatty squad. Actually, that's not true. It's 5-man. Which is, I guess, it's a fatty squad because they're really big. They're 3 wounds each, and they have T5. And when you just pair them with Azrael, so that they're going to be getting that 4-up invul save, it's I chose to give them the Executor bolt rifles. They're the heavy weapons, basically the Heavy Intercessor equivalent of Stalker bolt rifles, and the Executor Heavy Bolter, which is the 2-shot 3 damage one. The intended here is they're gonna use the Stubborn Defiance. So they're going to sit on an objective, and they're not going to move, and you're not going to be able to shift them, and they're going to get me 15 points. That's the goal.
Because they are their Gravis armor unit, if they're being shot at with something with 1 damage, you can increase their armor save by 1, or you give them +1 to the armor save, which I did that at the tournament on my Eradicators, which was pretty cool.
Yep. So that didn't really come up a lot for me in this game I played. They were basically trading fire with what's it? Yeah, they were trading fire with another unit of Heavy Intercessors on the other side. We'll go more to that later. So that's the intent of that goal. Intent of that unit is that they're just going to sit there and get Stubborn Defiance. Then I had a unit of Incursors, 5 Incursors. Nothing fancy here. They forward deploy. They give me a way so I can jump on an objective on the beginning of the game and get a banner raised. They screen stuff out. They provide kind of a speed bump. Just all the stuff that you use Scout deploys for. And then I had a 10-man unit of Infiltrators with a Helix Gauntlet. So once again, Infiltrators, I'm providing myself a screening unit. The intent, I wanted it to be a 10-man squad so I could combat squad it. And this actually worked out really well for me in the game I played. Is I can keep a unit, half of them back in my deployment zone, just screen out an edge of the board from reserves, and then keep another unit forward to jump on an objective, raise a banner, and act as a speed bump or as a bait. So, all right, then on to the elites. Here's where it starts. Yeah, here's where I think it starts to get. This is So I have 2 squads of company veterans. One squad of 5 company veterans that have 4 of them have combat shields, combi plasmas, and lightning claws, which is weird. And then the sergeant has a combi plasma and a lightning claw. I couldn't give him the shield because I just needed. I couldn't spend the 3 points to do it. But so I got 5 combi plasmas and a lightning claw, and then I've got another squad of 4 company vets with 3 the veterans all have combat shields, lightning claws, and combi flamers, and the sergeant has a combi flamer and a lightning claw. So, and then both of those are in a drop pod. So I'm gonna drop in, and then I've got a unit that can alpha strike you with my overcharged plasma, or I can just gun you down with flamers, combi, and bolters, and then lightning claws. Like, hey, charge me. That's cool. I'm fine with that. I'll charge you. I'm also fine with that. Because once again, with that combat shield, they're 2-up armor, 5-up invul. The only downside is they're expensive. They're like 36 points a model. They are 36 points a model. So they're more than Terminators. But once again, design decision here is no Terminators. So yeah, I intent here is that they would be able to get Line Breaker or Engage or something, or deploy Scramblers or something along those lines, and just provide some sort of spoiling unit in the opponent's backfield. Then I've got a Judiciar. The idea here is he's gonna sit inside of those Heavy Intercessors next to Ezekiel and Azrael, and basically provide a way to prevent a fast-moving combat army from getting to my line on turn 1 and killing me first. which didn't really come up yet in the one game I played, so it's not statistically significant at all. But alternatively, he moves up with the Assault Intercessors and then provides a backup way to. He's basically my redundancy for Mindworm. So I don't have to use a spell to cast I don't have to use a spell to get Fight Last effect. The alternative is I can have 2 Fight Last effects if I want.
Yeah.
So I can really lock down a whole front.
And he isn't a slouch. Like if you just need him to go in there and if you need him to go in there and just do 1 wound and just finish off something, he does it. He's beautiful. Yep. Don't expect him to kill him at full health, but if your Assault Intercessors get something down to like 2 or 3 wounds left, Judiciary is going to go in there and finish him off.
Yeah, and so the intent is he's going to run around with the Assault Intercessors and the Chaplain. So he's going to be re-rolling his hits as well because the Chaplain is most likely going to be using the Litany of Hate. So, yeah, all right. So fast attacks, 3 Plasma Inceptors. Nothing to see here. You know what this is for. You know what this do. It hurts things. It hurts things badly. So then heavy support, squad of 3 Eradicators. So a lot of people like to reserve these. I think honestly that I start them on the board because if I toe touch them into Azrael's Invul Save Aura, they become very, very resilient and they draw a lot of fire. and their range,
they die like instantly in every game I've played.
Yeah, but once again, if you give them a 4-up Invul save and you give them that +1 armor save, they're going to be they are a lot more resilient. All right, that's the list. So the goal here is be able to push, 1 strong alpha melee unit, and then I've got 2 ways to do high volume, high damage plasma. And I've got the Eradicators, and then I've got a way to just provide a really strong objective holding presence. And so far, I said I think I like it. It's good. I don't think that I'm going to play this list because I really want to be able to use Ravenwing and Deathwing properly. But this has taught me a couple of things. I didn't understand the value of Assault Intercessors until I built a list around them, and now I really, really like them. So I really like it. I'm a fan. So all right, what do you think? What's your comments, Bailey?
Well, the stratagem support. Well, and the stratagem support is amazing. So as you mentioned, you can fight twice. All right, Assault Intercessors is the only thing in the army that can fight twice now, and you can even put a Thunderhammer in there. They can take the sergeant can take a Thunderhammer. If you didn't want to give him spend command points to give him a sword, you can give him a little Thunderhammer, which is interestingly it's smaller than a regular Thunderhammer, but it still looks cool when you look at the model. You get the auto wounding 6s, which is correct. Like if you're going to fight a big monster or a knight or something, that's there. You can move and not count as shooting for command points. This is in the core book that affects all your infantry. So in those Plasma Inceptors, however they if they deep strike in or your drop pod with your dudes inside, they can come in and you can give one of those 2 squads a +1 to hit because now they don't count as moving. They get the chapter tactics. Now they have +1 to hit. Is essentially what that stratagem turns into for Dark Angels players.
Yeah,
and it's almost +2 to hit with a heavy weapon.
Yeah, with the Plasma Inceptors, they would be the intent target. That's an expensive stratagem. It's a 2 CP stratagem. So if you drop in, give them the +1 to hit, and then give them Weapons of the Dark Age, you just blew 4 CP. So I'm mindful of that. What I did with this was I actually started them on the board. So that behind a LOS blocking terrain because my opponent didn't have any line of sight, any indirect fire. So I was like, well, and then so you come at me and he just knows come in here. These things are going to jump up on top of this thing and then just kill whatever's in front of them. And then that also means that they are within range of Azrael to get the chapter command buff, to get the chapter master buff. So which is going to synergize really well with Weapons of the Dark Age. So. What else you think? What else you got?
The other key thing to remember that's in the core book is that you can shoot and still complete an action. So with those Inceptors or your dudes in your drop pod, you can drop them out on an objective. So they can drop out, raise a banner, and then annihilate something else, which is pretty powerful, underutilized stratagem. I think that Greenwing do really well. The one thing I don't see, because I don't think it applies to heavy Intercessors, is the fact that you can actually shoot twice with a regular Intercessor squad. Because I think the way it's keyworded in the stratagem is that it is the actual Intercessor squad.
It is. I looked at that. I think you could use it on veteran intercessors if you really were, if you want to, but it's not. It's keyed to the quote intercessor squad, which I believe the elite or the heavy intercessor. God dang it, the veteran intercessors have the intercessor.
Yeah, the
squad
veteran
keyword,
intercessor and the elite,
but the heavy intercessors don't. Yeah. So I actually used the shoot while action on this. It turned out not to be good use of command points because I raise banners with the heavy intercessors and then move them out. Use the oh god, what's the name of that stratagem? Uncompromising fire. Yeah, use uncompromising fire on them and then shut it, and then have the chapter command buff on them, and then they put fire across the board at my opponent's unit of heavy intercessors. Didn't really do anything, so I was like, oh, that's 2 CP wasted. But that heavy bolter is pretty spicy. I wish I could take more of them. It's 2-shot, like strength 5, AP 2, 3 flat damage. Like for real, man. That's good. So
the only other thing to think about there too with Brilliant Strategies, if you are running the rapid fire assault weapon thing, is that once you get past the tactical doctrine and you have Ez with them, he can put them back into tactical, so they get the AP and they can still shoot into combat, which I think is which is what I'm looking at doing with my own heavy intercessors.
And that is the reason why I don't think that like Stalker Bolters used to be the bee's knees for Dark Angels because of the previous way our doctrine worked. Nowadays, I think if you're playing Greenwing, you just want to give all your Greenwing stuff rapid fire assault weapons. There is argument to be made about whether the rapid fire version or the assault version is better. I think the jury's out on that. I could see an argument either way.
Yeah.
Having that extra shot at AP1 is probably real good, and it gives you the ability to project more firepower at the expense of the 1 point of AP. There are some things you could potentially do about that if you really just mash that together, use Wrath of the Lion, and that'll potentially give you an extra point of AP for every 6 you roll. But especially, I guess, once again, if you're using Azrael to reroll all your hits, then you can just chase the 6s with Wrath of the Lion on a unit of 10 unit of 10 intercessors with assault bolters that are going to fire twice. That is, you can put a lot of fire downrange. But yeah, so there's a couple of really cool interactions there. I'm a real fan of the assault intercessors have had me thinking this last week. Once I wrote this list out, I started playing it out in my head. The ability to get yourself that +1 strength on the charge and then the +1 to wound is a lot of layers of redundancy. So I'll just throw the Litany of Hate out there and then I'll put the exhortation on. Unless I think I need the extra, if it's a kind of a defensive charging situation, like they're moving across the board at me and I'm charging, to establish the line a few inches out on my own terms. I don't need Canticle of Hate, exhortation, I don't need Canticle, exhortation, Litany of Hate, and now they're going to be, juiced to the 9s, even if my Righteous Repugnance doesn't go off. So, which of course in the situation like this, the Righteous Repugnance did not go off. Yeah, and it's not dispellable. The opponent can't interact with it. So, other thing you can do here that I did do was I kind of kept everything tight around Azrael, and then I had one of the assault intercessors kind of toe touching back so that he was within 6 inches of Azrael, so that when that turn that I wanted them to charge started, I used adaptive strategy and I put them into the assault doctrine. So now their chainswords are -2, and they just and
don't underestimate -2.
Yeah, and so the situation I ran into, I played my buddy Ian, who is a Space Wolves player, dedicated Space Wolves player, like faux life.
Nice.
He's always complaining about how Terminators don't get to ride drop pods anymore, which I respect. I feel you on that, buddy. I missed that. That was very cool. But Space Wolf Blade Guard do a lot of damage. They really do a lot of damage. They are scary. Space Wolf have always been one of the killiest armies in the game if you can get them there. And on the coming out of an impulsor with a Canticle of Hate and a psychic power that puts them in the assault doctrine, they'll kill damn near anything. Ooh, so I hung a unit of infiltrators out to sit on an objective, raise a banner, and just try and bait him to come out on on that side of the board, so that when he got in position, I could countercharge him with the assault intercessors and a chaplain, which happened. And then TTS crapped itself, and I couldn't roll dice or interact with any models. So we're gonna finish that game tonight or tomorrow, but we'll see how it goes. So.
Nice.
Rolling this out. Let's say you've got 8 intercessors with 4 attacks each. That's 32 attacks. Hitting on 3s, rerolling all hits, wounding on 3s. Sorry, correction. Wounding on 2s because they're strength 5 because the chaplain also charged with the +1 exhortation rage. So I failed the litany of hate. Or correction, I failed the cast on righteous repugnance, obviously because that's me, but. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter.
Right.
It was like, hey, I'm wounding you on 2s, and these are -2 weapons, so it goes right to your 4-up invul. I don't need anything more than that. If he popped transhuman, like that's cool. I'm just gonna fight again, and I've got that Heavenfall blade, and I've got a chaplain, and I've got a justiciar that are all part of that little combat
fight,
bubble.
Buddy.
Yeah, so, and I put Mind Worm on them, so they had to, or the Justiciar I put Mind Worm on them, so they had to fight last. So they're not eligible to chosen, so you cannot interrupt them. All you can do is try and survive it. So, yeah,
That's good.
It's the game is kind of it's on the brink. If I can kill all of his impulsors, kind of break his ability to move, then I think I got a shot, but if I can't unhorse those veteran, he has a bunch of veteran intercessors and blade guard, and if I can't, and then a bunch of heavy intercessors in his backfield as his objective sitters.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that there's a lot to be said for assault intercessors and this Fury of the Lion, and that really could be like, why would you take those over blade guards? Like, well, for one, you can fight twice, so. And a chaplain on a bike is a thing that we're all already doing. So Fury the Lion, it's just going to make your assault intercessors and Litany of Hate, all your stuff's going to reroll all the hits. And I'm a fan. I really am a fan. And I think that given the assault intercessor
that's
sergeant,
and it's cheap.
Yeah, they're cheap. And given that sergeant the Heavenfall blade, one CP, but he has 3 attacks base. +1 for shock assault, +1 for the Heavenfall blade. That's 5 attacks. That's the Space Marine captain.
Yeah.
And that sword slaps.
And he fights twice.
And he fights twice. That sword slaps. And once again, if you use Gene Rot Might and Fury the Lion, he's T7 with +1 wound. He's wounded. Basically, he's wounded knights on 4s and everything else on 2s, just about. And it's it's a real dangerous unit. So if you're looking to build a little like patrol to go with for objective sitters to go with your Deathwing or your Ravenwing ball, maybe a little brick of assault intercessors. They can sit on your objective, and then you've got servitors or something, or your one or your little squad of 3 Ravenwing bikes. That once the assault intercessors get they are a strong countercharge threat. Like I am terrified of those things now.
Yeah.
So yeah. So anyway,
if they make the mistake and charge you, you get +1 to hit.
Absolutely. So and
that's a real cool list, Heath.
Yeah, full disclosure, I originally intended it to be a successor chapter. Which I think is something we're going to talk about for the next episode. Because if you do Whirlwind of Rage, then those assault intercessors just go bananas. Because if I roll an unmodified 6 to hit with Whirlwind Rage, if you roll an unmodified 6 to hit, it scores another hit. Hey, I've got a spell that lets me reroll all my hits and wounds.
Oh boy!
Right, and then if you pair that with Gene Raw Might, then every time I roll a 6 to hit, I get basically 2 hits that automatically wound. So I'll roll 40 dice. Boy. I'll roll 40 dice because my assault intercessors. I'm going to get 5 or 6, maybe 8 hits. That's 16 hits, and then I'm going to reroll. I'm going to reroll all the rest of the dice, even if they already hit, to chase those 6s. And it's going to murder things. So yeah, man. You don't need Blade Guard veterans
that's
or
fair.
Terminators to be a strong close combat threat as a Dark Angels player. So there you go.
Yeah. So that makes me think about our monthly challenge. So is next month's or this month's monthly challenge for next month going to be build a successor chapter, try it out, see what happens?
It could be. It very well could be. I bet I'm halfway there. You can tell me to I haven't actually built my Assault Intercessors
All
from
right.
Indominus
Well,
because I was so up on the rest of the stuff, but maybe I will now. So
mine are all painted. They're ready to go. So yeah, let's do that. So let's build a Assault Intercessor or a successor chapter, and with some Assault Intercessors in there. All right. Maybe you don't need them, but I'm going to because that sounds really cool. I'm going to try that. But we'll do a successor chapter. We'll come back. We'll talk about the traits next month and how we did. But what about last month? Last month we were supposed to build a new kit. One of the new kits that came out, that was the Eradicators, the Blade Guard, and the Speeder. So did you get yours built?
Well, I built my squad of attack bikes. Boop.
There you go.
Yep, I've got another one down there, but I've only got
and you
two
got
hands.
some 3D printed. You got the 3D printed heads
this
on
is
there.
the Pop Goes the Monkey Ravenwing heads. Nice. Yep. So, and
I got my.
That's nice. That's a bigger. That vehicle is a lot bigger than I thought it was.
So, yeah. Oh yeah, the land speeder. Yep, and it does suffer from This suffers from Primaris vehicle ness, like how they just don't fit together. Like I remember my friends that got the Impulsor, they're like, dude, you need like 20 rubber bands to put this thing together. Then the same thing was said about the Impulsor. Same thing with this. It's big and boxy, and you really gotta get need some clamp. Yeah, you need clamps to really do this. Clamps or rubber bands to not have big gaps, especially on the back. The back of it is where I had a really big issue with things just not wanting to line up and pull apart.
I remember that with the Impulsor. Yeah, you got to just lots of very fine work with a hobby knife. Don't hurt yourself. But lots of really fine work, and you'll measure twice, cut once, test fit before you glue.
Yeah.
And like you can make it work. I remember I had a bit of an issue, but I made it work. So, all right. I also
I didn't get a lot of work done on the base because it's easy, but also note how it's tall. I will point that out.
That I did not see that coming. It is
much taller than a regular land.
It is very tall. So I also finished my Ravenwing Apothecary. I green stuffed them little robes on. Yep, got him done up, and then I also finished my Bike Chaplain. Building at least, he's clearly not painted yet.
Nice.
But so yeah, I have finally.
It's in the ready to be painted.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, and my Slap Chaplain.
Well, that's another month in the books.
Yep.
Oh, nice. Well, that's another month in the books then for the two of us getting our challenge done. So
yeah,
next month is getting the successor chapter created and getting a game in with it, and we'll see how that goes. So moving on, we have our finally a full-bodied. I'm excited about this community interaction section. Now, some of this is stuff we've already addressed in the actual place where we got them. Like a lot of these were YouTube comments, and Heath and I both have addressed them there. But we're going to go back a little bit and talk about them here. For those of you that maybe are just listening or you don't read through comments on YouTube, which is sometimes a good idea because I've seen some pretty nasty stuff. Not in our videos, but other videos. So I understand why people just on principle wouldn't want to read through it. So from YouTube, we have this guy's name's J-Man Holiday 42. He's been a pretty loyal follower so far. And one of the things that he asked us about was, I really appreciate the reply and the excellent knowledge. I used the Hellblaster Impulsor combo and went to work. I also tried a list with a double Talon Master, my fave unit, and a Storm Talon, and had me some Swiss cheesed Hive Guard. So that goes back to his first comment where he asked us a couple months ago about how do I fight Hive Guard. And it looks like his answer was, I'm going to run some Talon Masters and a Storm Talon, which sounds brutal. So congrats on that.
Yeah, the Talon Masters are definitely. I was initially a little sour on them because they don't have the core keyword. That's before I realized they hit on twos, and you can do these things with the what we discussed earlier with the Arbiter's Gaze, but yeah, they definitely are a staple unit of the Dark Angels. Absolutely agree.
Now, last month we had a bunch of extra bonus videos, so that's why there are a lot of comments this month, because people had lots of opportunities to comment. So one of his other comments was, "Hey guys, still love you beauties." Oh, thank you. When are we going to get a glorious Discord? I started working on one. I haven't got it ready yet, though. So I talked to Heath about it, but I'm not quite ready to drop a Discord yet. I got to work on the the different chats and the rules and the different levels and things.
Yeah, there's a lot of
things. You just can't open it.
Yeah, there's a lot of back end that goes into this. Like I've spent a lot of time trying to learn how to use video editing software. So there's a lot that goes into it, even for a production as new and small as we are right now. So thanks for the ask. We will do our best to get there. So share, like, share, subscribe, whatever it is, and tell other people to come and watch and get more interaction. That just gives us more incentive and motivation to move the plan along, as it were.
Exactly. I'm going to move on to the next commenter, because he has sort of a comment very similar to J-Man Holiday 42's that he put on one of our videos. This is from Lord Mala, where he was asking us, or he was telling us how much he liked having or he asked us about adding visualization with TTS, which we did previously in the video about the tournament list that I had. And so there was some. He said thank you for that. Is a great step. Keep up the good work. So thank you. All right. He also liked the increased content. So that's all Heath. Heath's like, yeah, let's step it up. So that's all on Heath. So just keep on Heath, and Heath will keep on me, and then we'll try and get things going. I will point out, though, I'm going on spring break, and so I'm basically going to be unavailable until April. So we're probably going to have to wait till April for bonus content at this point, because I'm going to the beach. Unlike
Fair
Heath,
enough.
I have to drive 12 hours to the beach, whereas Heath just walks 15 minutes from his house.
Yeah, well, I don't walk 15 minutes from my house. I 2 years ago I lived in the middle of Waikiki, and it was a 15-minute walk from my house to Waikiki Beach. Even then, I really didn't go that much, because when you live here, it's just not that big of a deal. But now I have to drive 15 minutes to get to a beach, which is actually still. No. But anyway, so hey, so the TTS stuff. I agree with you. I really like it. It takes a little bit of setup, and that's one of the things. And it puts a lot more load on the back end. It took us nearly a week to get the last episode edited and put together. And it is a tool that we intend to use moving forward. And I'm trying, every time I play a game on Discord or on TTS, I'm trying to snapshot various turns so that we can go back. And I really want to make it a much more interactive experience. And we got some plans. I got some ideas about how we can make this look a little better moving forward, and then try and do some little snapshots of various tactics we can highlight, especially things with like deployment. And we're working on it. If you have any specific requests, like hey, for example, it's like hey, I want to learn how to deploy this army against this type of thing, or there's a specific mission or scenario, let us know, and hey, we'll throw something together and try and release and then try and record that and say, hey, this is how we would approach this problem. So, yeah.
Well, J-Man asked about old Deathwing army, so that we'll add that to the list.
Okay.
And finally today, my buddy Chris, the Chris I'm always talking about, watched. Thank you, Chris, and commented, Heath, my man, plasma is never wasted if it's clearing objectives and securing VPs. So there was something that we in a couple episodes ago where you were talking about shooting guardsmen with plasma, and you didn't feel like I think that was, you weren't feeling it. But I don't think you disagree that if you're scoring points, it's not wasted, right, Heath?
Yeah, it just feels like I would rather be shooting bolts at these guys, but hey, I guess. Yeah, if the plasma's killing stuff and securing VPs, then it's not wasted. I completely agree with you. It just feels like overkill,
Oh yeah.
But if it gets the job done, then it's so.
All right. Well, you got anything? That's all the comments we got. You got any final thoughts, Heath?
No, man. Like I said, please let us know what you want to keep seeing, and we will continue to try and provide that service to you. And we will. Look forward to hitting you next month. We are, as of next month, we are no longer going to be the new hotness on the deck. Drakari Codex was. They started previewing that today. So I said I am. As Joe Exotic said, I'm never going to financially recover from this. This is my other primary army. Fortunately, I already have most of the models. Just the rules. So, but we can start. I think starting next month, we'll probably start looking at our adding a new segment. Every now and then, the 100 secret orders of the Hecatonistica, which is the Dark Angel's secret methods about how to combat the individual threats that they face. So,
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Because I think there's gonna just based on how the Games Workshop does things, there's gonna be something in that book that hard counters Inner Circle, like it's just gonna knock us off the top podium. I just have that feeling because that's what always happens.
We'll see.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening to this month's episode of the Path to Redemption, the Warhammer 40,000 Dark Angels podcast. Our next episode will come out in April due to the fact that I will be on vacation for the next couple of weeks. Yes. And hopefully we'll... Oh, that's an old note. So please subscribe, like, and comment below if you're watching us on YouTube or listening to us on your preferred podcasting service. Until next time, I'm Bailey from Dank Wargaming.
It's Heath with Table War Hawaii.
Stay loyal, Angels.